What if Darth Sidious abandoned Anakin on Mustafar? Let's start the story on the molten planet. Mustafar's molten rivers raged beneath a charred sky, the air thick with ash and the scent of burning metal. Anakin lay broken on the bank, his body scorched and limbs severed after his defeat to Obi-Wan Kenobi. His breath came in ragged gasps, each exhale a reminder of the duel that had ended in betrayal and agony. His once bright blue eyes, now stained with pain and anger, stared up at the darkened skies as the distant hum of an approaching shuttle reached his ears, pulling him from the brink of unconsciousness. He recognized it, a Lambda-class shuttle, sleek and ominous, descending through the soot-laden clouds. The ramp lowered, and from the shadows emerged Darth Sidious, the new Emperor of the galaxy. Cloaked in darkness, he approached his apprentice.
Lord Vader.
His voice dipped.
You were meant to be the ultimate Sith, the one to stand by my side and rule the galaxy. Yet, here you are, defeated and broken by a mere Jedi.
Anakin tried to speak, but only a hoarse whisper escaped his lips. His vision hazed over as Sidious leaned closer.
I should have known better than to place my trust in you, Skywalker. Your failure is complete.
Anakin's heart pounded in his chest, not from fear, but from a growing rage that seared through his veins. He could feel the dark side pulsating around him, feeding on his anger and hatred. Sidious turned his back on him.
You are no longer of any use to me. I will leave you here on this wretched planet to rot, but not before I take what is rightfully mine. Your child will be raised by me to fulfill the destiny you were too weak to achieve.
These words cut deeper than any lightsaber, igniting a fire within Anakin's soul. He wanted to scream, to lash out, but his body betrayed him, paralyzed by pain and defeat. Sidious began to walk away, his footsteps echoing against the scorched sand.
No.
The word was barely audible, but managed to slip through Anakin's lips. His vision darkened, the edges of consciousness slipping away. But within that darkness, something else stirred, a power so raw and primal, it threatened to consume him. He reached for it, grasping at the shadows, drawing themselves into himself. His hatred for Palpatine, for Obi-Wan, for everyone who had betrayed him, burned like a supernova. He called upon the dark side with every ounce of his being, letting it seep into his wounds, knitting together the torn flesh and sealing the agony within. He could feel the Force responding to his call, its power swelling within him, feeding on his rage, his despair. Anakin's eyes snapped open. He could feel his strength returning, his body mending itself under the weight of his anger. He was no longer the man he once was. He was something else, something more. The last echoes of Anakin Skywalker were burned away, leaving only Darth Vader, a creature of pure hatred and power. Time lost all meaning for Vader as he lay among the jagged rocks and burning cinders of Mustafar. The pain became a constant companion, dulling his senses. The dark side whispered to him, keeping him alive. His body was a ruin, but his mind was sharp, focused on one thought, survival. Days passed, how many he could not tell, as he found the strength to move. The journey was a slow, agonizing crawl, inch by inch toward the complex where he had slaughtered the separatist leaders. A week had passed by the time he reached the entrance. The facility stood silent, a graveyard of broken machinery and lifeless bodies. He could smell the stench of charred flesh. He grabs the scattered limbs of the droids he had dismembered and goes to the medical facility. It was a cold chamber, but he began to work, using the Force to guide him. He attached the severed legs and arms of battle droids to his own mangled stumps. The pain was excruciating, a white-hot lance through his nerves, but he welcomed it, drawing strength from the agony. He had nothing left but pain and anger, and he would use both to survive. Hours passed, and finally the task was done. He stood unsteadily, his new limbs crude and mechanical, but functional. He found a cloak discarded in the corner and wrapped it around himself. He went to the hangar bay, where a single ship remained. It was old and forgotten, but it would serve his purpose. He leaves Mustafar, the planet where Anakin lost everything, including himself. He sets the coordinates for a remote system in the Outer Rim, a place where he could find the resources he needed to restore himself fully. By the time the shuttle dropped out of hyperspace, he was ready. The planet was unremarkable, a desolate world dotted with industrial complexes and forgotten outposts. He lands near a facility that dealt in black market cybernetics. He descended from the shuttle, his new limbs clanking with each step, and stormed into the facility. The workers inside barely had any time to react before Anakin seized them with the Force and lifted them into the air with an invisible grasp.
Do as I command. Replace these prosthetics with something worthy of me. Fail, and you will not live to regret it.
Their fear was palpable, and they obeyed without question, their hands trembling as they replaced the crude droid limbs with advanced cybernetics. The procedure was brutal, but Vader welcomed the pain. When the work was done, he stood before a mirror, examining his new form. His new armor was as black as his soul, and his mask was a symbol of fear. Vader leaves, 2 weeks having passed since his defeat on Mustafar, and he thinks on what to do next. The galaxy was vast, and Padme and his wife could be anywhere. He moved to a terminal, its screen flickering to life as he accessed the HoloNet. The news channels were filled with reports of the newly crowned Emperor Palpatine, and Vader's hands tightened into fists, the dark side surging within him at the sight of that man who had betrayed him. Vader's fingers moved across the controls, searching through databases and records. His heart pounded as he searched for Naboo, and there it was, her name listed among the dead. Padme Amidala Naberi, the former Queen of Naboo, deceased. The words struck him like a physical blow. Her funeral had been a week ago, a somber event on Naboo. Vader fell to his knees, the pain overwhelming. Padme was gone, taken from him just as he feared. His mind raced with questions. What happened to his child? Had they survived? Did Palpatine have them? Who killed Padme? Was it Palpatine? Rage burned inside him. Revenge against Obi-Wan would have to wait. Palpatine must be dealt with first. But he needed a weapon. He traveled to the nearest smuggler outpost, which would no doubt have what he desired. He felt the kyber crystal through the Force as he traveled to the private section in the shop and began searching through some boxes, and there it was, a lightsaber. The smuggler to whom it belonged to appeared behind Vader, pointing their blasters at him. But Vader was too quick. He ignited the blade and cut the smuggler down with ease. He takes the crystal out of the blade as the Force trembles around him. The crystal screamed in pain as he poured all of his pain, anger, and hatred into it, bending it to his will. Its color shifted from blue to a deep blood red. Vader would remain on the desolate outpost, far from the prodding eyes of the Empire. For weeks he would train with his new saber and armor, honing his skills, pushing his new body to its limits, and mastering the dark side. He embraced the pain he felt, and used it to fuel his power. Every moment, every strike was driven by his desire for vengeance, his need to destroy those who had wronged him. After months and months of training, he was ready, and he began his travels to Coruscant. Hey guys, before I continue the video, I'd just like to quickly shout out my Sabers shop, Fantasy Sabers, where we sell high quality NeoPixel Saber replicas, as well as some insane unique saber designs, from Nova Flare to King's Guard. Go check them out through the link in the top of the description, and find your one-stop shop for all your saber needs. Vader's ship descended through the atmosphere, as he focused on his destination, the former Jedi Temple, and now repurposed into the Emperor's throne. Vader landed the ship in a hidden Jedi Docker bay, using the shadows to conceal his presence. The dark side cloaked him as he moved silently through the halls, avoiding patrols and security systems with ease. He felt the dark side guiding him, pushing him forward with a single purpose, to confront the Emperor. The entrance to Palpatine's office was heavily guarded, but Vader used this as a warm-up, destroying the guards with ease as the doors to Palpatine's throne room slid open. Palpatine stood there with his back to the door, gazing over the cityscape of Coruscant. The air was thick with tension as Vader approached, his lightsaber ready at his side.
At last, Lord Vader, I sense your anger, your pain. You wish to destroy me, don't you?
You betrayed me, left me to die. I will make you pay for what you did to Padme.
Her death was your doing, Anakin. Your love for her was a weakness, and it destroyed you. But I will not make the same mistake.
Vader lunged at Palpatine, his lightsaber a blur of deadly strikes. The Emperor responded with speed that defied his age. His own lightsaber ignited to parry Vader's strikes. The throne room became a battlefield. The walls and furniture reduced to smoldering wreckage as the two Sith clashed. Vader fought with all the fury he could muster, his strength enhanced by the dark side. But Palpatine was a master of the dark arts, his power ancient and deep. He deflected Vader's blows, countering with strikes that left the younger Sith reeling. Vader felt himself driven back, his rage fueling his attacks, but also clouding his judgment. Vader's new limbs, powerful as they were, began to falter under the relentless assault. He could feel the dark side slipping from his grasp, his connection to it weakened, and his body betrayed him. Sidious cackles as he cast lightning at Vader, which struck him dead center, sending him crashing into a far wall, his body convulsing in anger. He tried to rise, but his strength was gone.
You are a fool, Anakin. You were never strong enough to defeat me, and now you will die knowing you failed.
But before Palpatine could deliver the final blow, Vader summoned the last of his strength and hurled himself out of the shattered window, plummeting towards the city below. The wind whipped around him as he fell. He reached out with the Force, slowing his fall enough to crash into a rooftop far below. Broken and barely alive, Vader crawled to the edge of the roof. He had been defeated, utterly and completely. He had failed Padme, failed their child, and failed himself. His rage led him down a path of destruction, and now he was a shadow of the man he once was. As he lay there, battered and broken, he began to realize the truth. The dark side had failed him, betrayed him, and given him false promises of victory. This was not the destiny Padme always wanted for him. She believed in him, in the good that still remained within him. But he had abandoned that light, choosing instead to embrace the darkness that had ultimately destroyed him. Tears stung in his eyes as the weight of his actions crashed down upon him. He had become what he once sworn to fight against. The Force had shown him the futility of his path, that the dark side could not offer him the power he sought, and only brought him pain. With great effort, Vader, no Anakin, rose to his feet, the light beginning to return to his heart. He did not let Palpatine's darkness claim him any longer. He would turn back to the light for Padme, for their child, and the man he had once been. When the time came, he would confront Palpatine again, not out of hatred, but to bring balance to the Force as he was meant to do. As Anakin left Coruscant behind in his ship, a vision gripped him with the Force so intensely, it nearly knocked him off his feet. The stars outside his cockpit burned as the Force pulled him into a different reality. He saw two children, a boy and a girl, strong in the Force, their connection to him undeniable. As he sees images of Padme on Polis Massa giving birth, his heart raced as the vision shifted, showing him a desolate landscape of sand dunes under twin suns, Tatooine. The boy was there, and Anakin knew that his son, his children, were alive. The Force had granted him this vision after returning to the light. He set his course for Tatooine without hesitation. The trip was a blur, his mind consumed with thoughts of what he would find, what he would say. When his ship touched down on the outskirts of a small moisture farm, he felt a presence he hadn't sensed in months. Obi-Wan was there waiting, standing protectively beside a young boy who looked up at Anakin with wide, curious eyes. Anakin steps out of his ship and walks towards him. Obi-Wan was prepared to fight who he thought was Vader and destroy him once and for all. But when Anakin got close enough, Obi-Wan no longer felt the darkness inside of him from Mustafar, and only the light of the man he had once called his brother. Anakin knelt before the boy, tears in his eyes. The boy blinked, looking from Obi-Wan to Anakin, his father, sensing the connection between them. Obi-Wan placed his hand on Anakin's shoulder.
I'm so happy you found your way back, Anakin. I thought I had killed you on Mustafar.
They embraced, all the pain melting away from them. There was no need for explanations. They both understood the journey that had brought them to this point. They left Tatooine together with the 1-year-old Luke and set course for Alderaan, where the reunion was just as emotional for Anakin. Organa understood why they had to take Leia, but he was still saddened by the loss of his adopted daughter. With both children now safe, they made their way to Dagobah, where Yoda was in exile. The Grandmaster revered when he saw Anakin, ready to attack, but like Obi-Wan, he sensed no hate inside Anakin, and Obi-Wan talked him down. As a Jedi, Yoda couldn't hold any hate in his heart, and would eventually have no choice but to forgive Anakin who actively worked to right his wrongs. Together, when the Jedi became old enough, they began their training in the Force, preparing them for the role they would once play in restoring the galaxy. The training was rigorous, demanding strength and discipline. Anakin taught them the ways of the Force with a deep understanding, born from his own trials. Obi-Wan provided wisdom and patience, his steady hand guiding them through the complexities of the Jedi Code. Yoda, ancient and wise, challenged them with lessons that tested not just their physical abilities, but their minds and spirits as well. For 16 years, the twins trained in the swamps of Dagobah, learning to harness the Force in all of its forms. They practiced lightsaber combat under Anakin's watchful eyes, their skills sharpened through countless hours of sparring. Luke showed a natural aptitude to mechanics and piloting, skills that Anakin encouraged, whilst Leia demonstrated a keen intellect and a deep connection to the living Force. As the years passed, Luke and Leia became more than just students, but rose into the power of Jedi Knights. Obi-Wan maintained secret communications with Bail Organa and Mon Mothma. Together they coordinated the early efforts of what would one day become the Rebel Alliance. They knew this would take years of careful planning, building alliances and slowly turning the public opinion against the Emperor. Rebel cells began to form across the galaxy. These pockets, although small at first, grew in strength and numbers as more beings saw the Empire for the tyranny it was. On Dagobah, Luke and Leia's training continued. When they reached the age of 16, their mastery of the Force had grown to astonishing levels, rivaling the power Anakin had once wielded at 21. The twins were ready. The galaxy had changed during their years of seclusion, and now the Rebel Alliance had fully formed, uniting various factions under a single cause. The Jedi joined the Alliance and fight. The Alliance declared war on the Empire, as all-out war erupted across the stars, with the Rebel Alliance launching coordinated strikes on Imperial targets, liberating occupied worlds and inspiring countless beings to rise up. Palpatine was disgusted by this. He hadn't heard anything from the Jedi in years, and knew they were up to something, but not to this extent. Palpatine believed the children of Padme died with her, and assumed Luke and Leia were simply normal Force sensitives, but he couldn't be more wrong. The Rebel Alliance formulated a plan to strike at the heart of the Empire, Coruscant. The Rebel fleet came out of hyperspace and began attacking the Empire's defenses, as the Emperor is forced to call back some of his forces to the planet. Meanwhile, during the initial chaos, Anakin, Luke, Leia, Obi-Wan and Yoda used stolen Imperial codes to infiltrate Coruscant. Their mission is to disable planetary shields to assist in the rebels' attack. They are successful, but know their greatest challenge follows. They infiltrate Palpatine's throne on the planet, the once Jedi temple, and they can still feel the spirits of the Jedi's lost. They cut through the Emperor's guards as they make their way to the throne room. Palpatine had been expecting them, and standing next to him were two unexpected beings. Beside him stood Mara Jade, his deadly Sith assassin, and beside her, a figure thought long dead, Darth Maul, Sidious's current apprentice.
So the Jedi have returned, but you are too late. The dark side will not be denied.
Behind the Jedi entered 12 Praetorian guards, and they had a fight on their hands. The room erupted into battle, Anakin and Luke surging forward towards Palpatine. Leia engaged Mara Jade, whilst Obi-Wan fought Maul, and Yoda dealt with the Praetorian guards. Leia and Mara Jade fought with passion, but Leia was far stronger, cutting her blade in half and knocking the assassin unconscious. Maul advances at Kenobi, attempting to use the same move that he used to defeat Qui-Gon, but Kenobi cuts through it and Maul, stopping him in his tracks. Yoda's acrobatics were too much for the Praetorian guards, as he carved them down one by one. Palpatine stood there in fear. How could the Jedi be this powerful? But then he sensed the bond in the room, the bond between Anakin, Luke and Leia, and it all made sense. These were the children of the Chosen One. With a final push, Luke disarmed Palpatine, sending his lightsaber skidding across the floor. Anakin gathered the Force for one last attack, sending lightning at the Jedi, but Luke stood firm and blocked, whilst Anakin leapt forward, striking his lightsaber in a flash of blue, cutting across Palpatine, as his body crumpled to the ground lifeless. Meanwhile, above the planet, the rebels successfully defeated the Empire's forces, and land to occupy the Imperial Senate, where they begin the phases of re-establishing the New Republic. The Jedi assist in this, both in destroying the Imperial remnant forces across the galaxy, but also fostering peace and helping out disadvantaged worlds that the Empire almost destroyed. A year of this passes, and they decided to reconvene on Coruscant, after Yoda succumbs to his age and breathes his last breath. Anakin and Obi-Wan decide it's time to restart the Jedi Order. Obi-Wan explains how Anakin truly was the chosen one, that destroying the Jedi was a part of his journey, as well as his redemption, and defeat of the Sith alongside his children. That both the Jedi and Sith are wrong, and the Force is attempting to show them that one must strive for balance in the Force rather than light or dark. This will be the philosophy of their new Jedi Order, similar to that of the Jedi of old, as Obi-Wan and Anakin lead them as joint Grandmasters. Anakin was redeemed, his time in the dark side although short, and he truly was the chosen one. Ignite your imagination with fantasy sabers. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out what if Vader joined the Bad Batch, and what if Anakin was reborn with all of his memories. Please like and subscribe, check out the voice actors in the description, and I'll see you all next time. Also check out Fantasy Sabers, where we sell the greatest replica sabers and unique Padawan designs.